Hi, this is Petra Lohmeyer from Nevelle, and this is the Win-Win podcast, and this time a little bit different. We are still looking at what is possible, but also what stands in the way. So one of the things that is possible, which is really cool, is the world's first fossil-free steel tech is ready for global rollout in Sweden, and it causes 7% of global emissions usually, but Sweden has made steel without coal, and it will have probably about 10% less emissions as soon as that is rolled out. That is huge, and it was one of those industries where people thought that was never going to happen. So this is really cool. They're using apparently hydrogen and bio-oil pellets. And you can take a look on the website. It's this is where I got this from LinkedIn, from this man who posted this, and that is why I'm giving him credit. But you can also go to their website. Hybrid is the name of the company, HYBRIT. And that is really fascinating. It could be an example for other countries as well, of course. Now, one of the things that I really realized is a problem with the whole win-win situation and win-win thing is mindset. And of course, I've got a whole course about this, a win-win course. And one of the sections is mindset. Another one is examples of win-win situations. Another section is change management, obviously. But mindset is really a huge thing, and I don't think I have to go into it too much here, because I think mindset is something that English speakers are very much aware of, because it's a very big thing in America. Personal development, also in England with coaches, is not quite as big here. That is why I did this a little bit more extensive than I will do this on the English side. But one of the things that you need to be aware of as well is not just that sometimes people can be a little bit arrogant and think that everything that they've done has always been right, so it must be right in the future as well, which is the whole far right kind of mindset that you also have, but also at the same time a missing determination, so people just give up too soon. If I look at funding here for startups, it's for half a year, and if you're not if you're not profitable after half a year, then it's considered a failure. I mean, that is ridiculous. Airbnb took, I think, like 7 or 8 years until they actually made a profit. And now they're billionaires. And most of these billionaires out there, you will see that they have failure after failure after failure after failure. If you take a look at like Tony Robbins' podcast, for example, you will see a lot of these people, and they will say how they started, and it took years for most of them to even get a foot in the door, right? So don't give up too early if it's not working right away. But also what I'm seeing is the inability to see what's actually there. I mean, there are still climate change deniers, I just noticed, and it just blew my mind, because here you literally can see it in front of you here, and they're still denying it and saying it's a local phenomenon. But I mean, if you have a local phenomenon all over the globe, it's going to be a global phenomenon, right? And of course, climate change was wasn't as fast as it is now in the past, but that's not a good thing. It's a huge system. If that is changing that fast, we have a problem. So we should be doing something about this. And this is what this win-win podcast is about, because pessimism and sarcasm is often just laziness, right? If I'm sarcastic and I give somebody else the fault, then I can go to the pub and drink, and I don't have to do anything. And that's, I think, not what we are after. We had the example here with in the car industry, for example. Germany has a really good car industry, as everybody knows. And in, I think, 1998, somebody in VW, actually came in with a 3-liter car. I mean, it was diesel, but it was a 3-liter car. And they did manufacture it for a short time, and then they gave up on it. And that is unfortunate, because now they are having a massive problem, and the car industry here has a massive problem all over the world. And you'd think that it is the car industry that has a massive problem, but no, China has no massive problem at all. And we will see later they have 70% of the market share in the world with EV in the EV market. I mean, we really missed the boat here, and that is because we were looking backwards and we were looking at things that already were working instead of looking into the future and also seeing the win-win with nature. And that is what I'm saying the whole time. I am for nature. I am doing this because I love nature. I love animals. I love being outside, and I don't want this to go. But I also see that other people don't quite feel that way. So I'm meeting them where they are. And if they want to make a profit, innovation is where the profit is. And that is the field where we need to go into. And then you can also make a profit with this stuff. And, they are making a profit in the EV market, obviously. And, somebody like Elon Musk, for example, became a billionaire making an electric car. He didn't go bankrupt because he did the right thing. He became a billionaire. So this is something that people just don't see sometimes. So it is really a matter of taking responsibility of actually seeing reality where we actually are and actually doing something. And blaming all the other people. Somebody actually told me the other day that he thought that Al Gore was a criminal because he was telling people about climate change. And he wasn't the kind of person that I would have expected this from. He wasn't some guy in the pub with an 80 IQ, but he was actually a scientist. And it just blew my mind. And at first I thought, okay, this must be brainwashing. But then I also realized that sometimes people just are so long in denial and stuck so long in denial because it meets a need. Like Tony Robbins says in his need psychology, it meets a need to just believe this. And you also don't have to do anything then if you say, oh, well, there's no problem, right? Sarcasm and aggression instead of actually doing something can also be a short-term solution, and instead of thinking long-term, and we have a word for that, and that is addiction. If you always want to satisfy your short-term goals instead of just looking for the long-term, that is the same problem that alcoholics have, for example. And you will find that somebody who lives healthily will quite often be attacked by alcoholics, and they will pour alcohol in his drink to try to make him come back, or they will be really mean to him until he actually drinks with them. And you will find the same thing with people who want to protect the environment or who look for win-win situations, that they are attacked by people who want to think in the past. And that although they are actually doing something good for everyone, including the people who attack them. So this is a really weird psychological mechanism to be aware of. But I mean, guys, take a look. If the far right, in all countries, not just in ours, but in all countries at the moment, they are all thinking that both Americans and Russians are their friends here in Europe, right? The same people who, like Elon Musk, wanted to get the AfD elected, and the same people who post me the YouTube videos of those far right people are also giving me videos of Russian propaganda. That's just weird. I grew up in Germany, which had a Western and an Eastern part, and at least we knew who was what. But nowadays, you don't seem to know anything anymore, and that is a really worrying thing, because they think that both the Russians and the Americans are their friends. Do you really think so? Were the English the friends of Hitler when they told him to attack? Probably not, right? I think I'm not going to expand on that here, because most people know what the politics were, really, even if it's not really expanded on usually. But, I mean, movements like this that are very aggressive, and it's not just the far right, it's other movements as well that may even have started as something beneficial, are often used by their very enemies against their enemies without actually realizing it. So I'd be very, very, very careful with all this. as I said, we can also find positive solutions. If we want to land somewhere, we should concentrate on where we want to land. Seek and you shall find is already in the good book, and that also means if you don't seek, you don't find. But if you seek the wrong thing, you will find also that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So why not focus on what we want instead of bombing each other to a kingdom come, which we all may not survive? How about we focus on what we want, a future that is actually positive? And being positive doesn't mean that we destroy other people or pretend that something isn't happening, but that we fix it. We see where we are and we fix things. And people are doing that already. We see the EV market taking off in China. We see the world's first fossil-free steel tech. We see Suntory. We see solar panel windows achieve record-breaking efficiency. We see these wind turbines that don't kill birds and bats. We see water energy systems. A startup that recycles CO2 from industry into useful materials, then an idea that is really rather out there. And we see the Dutch cleaning rivers with from microplastic. There are so many beautiful solutions there, and a lot of these I have already showed you in the past videos. So if you haven't seen it, so take a look at those videos. 3 countries innovating their way to clean energy. There's so much good happening. I mean, as I said, China again used to be the bad boy when it came to the environment. And now take a look at them. I mean, they have the largest share of energy patents globally. It was a home of estimated 1,200 of the world's 4,000 new energy startups. It has 70% of the planet's electric cars. But Germany is also good, and nobody here seems to be aware of that, which is really weird, at least in terms of solar and wind power. Now, I'm not a big friend of these big wind wheels because of animals, but as I said, as I showed before, it can be done in a different way as well. And 39% of power generation comes from renewables already. And I talked to one of the CFOs of one of the biggest energy companies in South Germany, and they're already at like 52 or 53%, and they used to be at 20% only like 10 or 15 years ago. So this is really something that is happening, and it has a leading number of energy patents, energy storage and electric transport. So why don't we just focus on that? You know, a lot of our countries built themselves up again after the war and really began to be really successful. And one of the dynamics that I think are behind this whole thing that is happening right now, most of you will maybe know about the book Generations, where it is expanded that every 80 years that the same thing happens again throughout history. Every 80 to 100 years, the same thing happened again. People just became stagnant, and then a whole big war happened, and then suddenly things started again. How about this time we skip the war, right? We just decide that, okay, we are stagnant now, we have to do something, and we just go forward into a much better future because we already have something to battle. We can battle climate change. We don't have to battle each other. We don't have to battle other nations. We don't have to put the money into all the bombs and whatever in order to get, that is how nations used to increase their capacity in terms of economics, that they prepare for war, and then suddenly a lot of money was coming loose and getting into the war effort, and suddenly things happened, and the Autobahn was built, and yeah, but everything was bombed afterwards as well. I mean, take a look at the outcome. Is that really what we want? Or do we just want to battle something else? Like with COVID we did it, but that was maybe not a good example. That was maybe just a test. But how about we battle climate change instead? That is a real enemy that is out there, and it is not somebody that we have to shoot. It's not somebody we have to destroy. It is we can do beneficial things for everyone in order to solve the problem. And how about we fuel all our energy into that? Wouldn't that be a great idea? So, and this time we would do that with nature. of course, because that is leaving nature out of the circle of care, so to speak, is what created all this. What got you here won't get you there. So it is nice where we are right now, but we have to do something else. That is a sentence that doesn't come from me. That comes from a strategic management course from Harvard, which I took part in one of my past companies. And everyone in management should have heard of this sentence. And that is the same thing here. So let's not use a war again to increase development in people and in nations, but let's do it another way. Let's do it a war against the problem, not against other people. One of the nicest things I've heard, I hear a lot of complaining around here, although it is beautiful and people don't really have any problems. I mean, the only problem that they have is when they actually get sick, which is oftentimes a result of bad choices in life, of bad choices with regards to what is put in the mouth, and bad attitudes a lot of times, and that can change. But how about replacing our expectation with appreciation, and the whole life will indeed change. I just saw a podcast with Mo, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Goddard. I'm not entirely sure. He was the chief something officer of Google, and he developed an algorithm for himself when he was really, really unhappy, although he had everything, beautiful family, more money than he could spend, and so on and so forth. And he actually realized exactly the same thing as Tony Robbins says: if I live without expectation, then I'm actually happy. It's the expectations that make me unhappy, right? And maybe that is why a lot of people are unhappy, and maybe that is the development that should be happening. It should be happening inside instead of focusing on the outside. And developing gratitude. I mean, develop gratitude for the earth. Take a look at what the earth is giving you for free. The earth, the food, all these things that you would have to pay a lot for if you had to manufacture it yourself. Isn't it something to be happy about? Nature will love you long after your own mother has stopped loving you or is not around anymore. Nature will always give you what you need if you take care of her. So maybe we should take a look at having a little bit of gratitude for that. And that is what I wanted to stop today. And next time we will go on again with the usual podcast with examples. So this was Petra Loma from Nevelle.